I know this response took a while, but I needed time to gather every single fact before opening my mouth. Lately, some wild accusations have been thrown at me by an ex-girlfriend and an ex-partner. They're claiming I secretly recorded intimate moments, acted so rough it almost counted as assault, pushed body issues, and was into age-related fantasies. These claims are totally false and seriously twisted. The two people behind these lies, Sacramento 89, real name Rowan, and Left for Dead, real name Katie, ran to the gossip site Kiwi Farms, dropping their accusations along with screenshots they clearly cherry-picked to fit their story. But what they didn't count on is that I've got solid receipts, real evidence, that easily proves their story doesn't hold up. So let's start with Sacramento, or Rowan. I dated her for around 7 months, from May 2025 to January 10th, 2026. Just 4 days after we split, she posted her first attack online. In it, she called me a freak and claimed that I would, quote, record sexual encounters without asking for consent. That's a straight up lie. I have never recorded anything intimate without full, explicit consent. Period. And here's the twist. Rowan was actually the one who first brought up filming in the first place. On Tuesday, August 19th, after about 3 months of knowing each other and being intimate, she sent me a text saying, "You should get those meta glasses when you crack me." Yeah, that's her message. Her idea, not mine. So I replied, "For what?" And she shoots back with cracking time, basically hinting at me filming her using the glasses built-in camera. At that moment, I didn't play along, didn't get excited, didn't even agree to the idea. I just kept it calm and said, "Good night, sweet dreams." That was it. Then a full week goes by. Not a single word about filming or anything close to it. But on August 25th, out of nowhere, Rowan texts me again saying, "You should get those meta things for real." So I told her straight up, I think I'm going to avoid filming anything involving sex for a while. That message alone shows who was really pushing the filming idea. And it wasn't me. Even after I said no, she kept bringing it up like she was determined to make it happen. Now, just to be clear, yes, we did eventually record some intimate moments, but every single time she gave full and direct consent. No games, no pressure, no hidden stuff. And honestly, a few times she even grabbed the phone herself and held it while we filmed. There was never any tripod, never any sneaky setup. Everything was handheld, right there in the open, and in every single clip, she's looking directly into the camera lens. That's full awareness, plain and simple. And here's the kicker. On September 8th, Rowan texts me saying, "I do miss it though," clearly talking about our private moments. Then she follows up with, "Send the videos." Keep in mind, these are the same videos she now claims weren't consensual. But her next words say it all. She literally said, "I will watch them and keep them close to my heart." That doesn't sound like someone who was unaware or against it, right? I'm a super cautious person when it comes to my private life, especially anything about dating or intimacy. Being in the public eye makes me extra protective of what happens behind closed doors. So yeah, I was really hesitant to send Rowan any of the videos we recorded. I just didn't feel right about it. The only thing I ever shared with her was one single still image. And even then, my face was completely covered. In the back of my mind, I kept thinking, what if her accounts weren't properly secured? What if she got hacked? The last thing I wanted was something private like that leaking online. But then she started throwing around this wild claim that I was somehow blackmailing her with those videos. That's a serious accusation and totally baseless. At one point, someone even asked her whether she planned on involving law enforcement. Her response basically confirmed everything. She said she just wanted to compel him to delete whatever he has. And that was the extent of her interest. That's it. No mention of threats, no proof of intimidation, nothing that even hints at blackmail. Let me be clear. There has never been a single shred of evidence showing I threatened to release or share anything. Not one message, not one voice note, nothing. And let's be real. Why would I ever risk my entire career like that? I'm someone who lives in the public eye, and I know how fast a scandal can destroy everything. The thought that I'd ever leak something private like that is beyond ridiculous. The idea that I'd ever release a private video of me and my ex just to get back at her is absolutely insane. Doing something like that would destroy my reputation completely. And let's not forget, it would also carry serious legal consequences. The truth is, the only person who's ever sent any intimate image of us to someone else is actually Rowan herself. Yeah, just days after we broke up, she sent the only image she had of us being intimate to the owner of Kiwi Farms, and she did it without my consent. Listen to how he even describes what she sent him. He said, "Oh, and one other thing. Sacramento sent me a picture that was, like, censored. Apparently, the only picture he would send her is one where his face isn't clearly visible, but I can tell it's his setup. The desk, the computer moved onto the table, the monster drink sitting on the cozy. It's all in the exact same spot. So yeah, that's definitely his desk." Now tell me, isn't that wild? Rowan, the same person claiming I was blackmailing her with private content, is literally the one who shared it with a complete stranger online. That's beyond ironic. Then it gets even stranger. This guy Josh, the one who saw the image, starts describing it like it's proof that I was being too rough, saying it looks like I was grabbing her by the mouth. But here's the crazy part. After I originally sent Rowan that censored photo, she texted me saying she liked it. Her exact words were, "I like when you cover my mouth like that." And she didn't stop there. She kept asking for the videos again. She literally texted me, "Yeah, whenever you're not locked in, send the videos. It will fix me for about a week." That doesn't sound like someone feeling threatened or mistreated. It sounds like someone fully aware, involved, and even asking for more. The double standard here is just unreal. This right here is solid proof that Rowan has never had a real problem with those videos existing. Not back then and not now. She's never shown a single piece of evidence proving that the videos were recorded without consent, that I ever tried to blackmail her, or that I planned to send them to anyone. Why? Because none of that ever happened. In her interview, Rowan claimed that I never asked for consent to film and said she wouldn't notice I was recording until 30 seconds to a minute in. But that's just not true. Obviously, I would never show those private clips to anyone. That's completely off limits. But what I can say is that from the very first second of every recording, she's looking straight at the camera. She never once asked, "Why are you filming?" or acted surprised because she already knew exactly what was happening. Every single time we recorded, I made sure she was fully aware and had given clear, explicit consent. There was never any sneaky behavior, no tricks, nothing hidden. And honestly, it makes no sense for her to say she didn't know when, in some of those moments, she was literally the one holding the phone herself. That's not someone unaware, that's active participation. Then, in the same interview, she said what really bothered her was that I wouldn't send her the intimate videos we took. So which is it? How could she claim she never consented but still be upset that I didn't send them to her? The story doesn't add up, and anyone looking closely can see that clear as day. Like I mentioned before, I was super paranoid about sending those videos to anyone, even to Rowan herself. I didn't trust how easily stuff can leak online, so I held back for my own protection. Funny enough, in our messages at the time, she actually seemed to understand that. She said, "I want to see them videos goon time," and then followed up by admitting she understood why I was nervous to send them. That's not someone being scared or unaware, that's someone who totally gets it. Now, let's jump ahead to October 17th. In our texts, Rowan asked me, "Do you ever go back and watch our videos?" I told her, "Yes, I do. Sometimes, actually." And her response? She said she was thinking about those exact moments right then, and even added, "Need that big white cock." What really stands out here is how she called them our videos. But now, suddenly, she's pretending she never wanted them to exist at all. That's a complete turnaround. Then, just a few weeks later, on November 6th, she texted me asking why I never asked her for new pictures. I told her honestly, I have a bunch of videos already. And guess what? She didn't complain. She didn't say those were non-consensual. She didn't accuse me of anything. She didn't even sound uncomfortable. Instead, all throughout our relationship, she kept sending me nude photos of herself, totally unprompted, every single month. So let's be real for a second. Why would someone send intimate photos to a person they supposedly fear could use them against them? It makes no sense at all. Rowan even posted dozens of screenshots of our old texts online trying to make her case, but not one single message shows her ever saying the videos were recorded without her permission. And get this, during our breakup, she even sent me a pros and cons list she wrote about me on January 4th, 2026. That's just days before everything blew up, and it shows how she was still deeply involved and emotionally attached. Not scared, not threatened, not a victim of what she's now trying to paint it as. That claim is straight up false, and anyone can see it just by reading through our old messages. On August 17th, 2025, literally the day after my birthday, Rowan and I were making plans to go to Mass. In the middle of our conversation, she texted me saying, "Tom, I started my period." I was driving at the time, so I just replied quickly, "That sucks. I'm 40 minutes away." Then she followed up with, "Do you mind getting your sword bloody?" And I responded, "I'll be okay." Now think about that for a second. She's the one asking me if I'm okay with it, meaning she was talking about possibly bleeding because of her period, not because of any roughness. If I was actually making her bleed every single time we were together, why would she even need to ask that question? This text alone proves how off her story is. And remember, this was already months into our relationship. We'd been seeing each other for a while and had been intimate regularly. If she was truly bleeding after every encounter, she wouldn't still be checking to see if the idea of it made me uncomfortable. That just doesn't add up. Once she started posting about me publicly, people naturally began asking questions. They noticed her claim that she bled during sex every single time didn't sound normal, so they asked if she might have a medical issue. Her reply? She said, "I have no health issue that I know of. Never bled during sex before. It was the aggression. Just gave into it after a while and told him I liked it, but I bled after almost every single time." But here's the thing. Even that small detail about no medical issue is false. On September 24th, 2025, Rowan texted me herself, saying she was switching from Nexplanon to birth control pills because her current implant was giving her month-long periods that caused her to bleed. Her own message completely contradicts what she later told people online. So when she claims that all the bleeding came from me being too aggressive, the facts just don't support it. Her own texts show otherwise. So according to her own words, Rowan bleeds for an entire month at a time, completely unrelated to anything sexual. Still, one of her biggest accusations is that I was too rough, claiming our private moments were full of intense, violent aggression every single time. She's even said that I hit, choked, or beat her without asking, painting this picture of me as some kind of abusive partner. She's been trying to push this narrative that I forced rough, unwanted encounters on her, and that she supposedly hated it but stayed anyway. And yeah, I've seen people online asking the obvious. If it was that bad, why didn't you leave? But I want to be really clear. I'm not here to dismiss anyone's experience or pain. Sometimes people truly do stay in harmful relationships, and that's real. But in this case, that's not what was happening at all. The truth is, Rowan didn't stay because she was scared. She stayed because she wanted it. She was the one constantly asking for validation of her own fantasies, pushing the boundaries, and wanting things to get even wilder. Her own messages prove it beyond question. In one screenshot, she flat out says she's a real freak and that she wants me to kidnap her. She literally wrote, "I want to be tied up, taken to the woods, and pounded." Those are her words, not mine. And how did I respond? I told her straight up that we shouldn't do anything like that in the woods. I was the one setting boundaries while she kept testing them. Then in another message, she said, "I yearn to be manhandled and led across a dark room." Those are her fantasies, not something I forced on her. The same person calling me too rough was the one constantly asking for that kind of treatment. The contrast between what she's saying now and what she said back then is wild, and it completely changes the story. She once told me, "That's why I like you," after I joked and said, "You're like a dungeon person." Then she replied, "You're big like a caveman, and I feel small next to you." That's literally how she described me. She liked that energy. Whenever I wanted to slow things down, make it softer or more affectionate, she actually didn't like it. I remember one specific night when I tried to keep things more calm and intimate, and she leaned in close, whispering in my ear, "I want you to pound me." That right there tells the whole story. And this wasn't a one-time thing either. On June 5th, 2025, she texted me saying, "I need to get face-fed for an hour." I just laughed it off and replied, "Damn, exams suck." 2 days later, on June 7th, she sent another message saying, "I'm excited to get fed borderline domestic violently." These are her exact words, not mine. Now, during her interview, she made a claim that I once got mad at an ex-girlfriend, and the next time we were intimate, I took that anger out on her. That's such a strange and twisted thing to say, especially when on October 13th, she literally texted me, "Sometimes I want to fight you, just so you'll be more angry when you fuck me." Then she immediately followed it up with, "I do like that though, even without the fighting." So what's really going on here? Publicly, she's saying, "Look at all this terrible stuff he did to me." But in private, she was sending messages like, "Kidnap me, tie me up, and pound me in the woods." She's trying to rewrite history into a story of abuse when her own texts tell a completely different truth. And if we're being honest, whenever anyone was hesitant or trying to draw a line, it was me. I was the one saying no to certain ideas, while she was the one pushing for more extremes. She even lied about small, unnecessary details in her interview, like saying I was her second boyfriend. That might sound minor, but it shows how willing she is to twist facts just to fit a certain image. The inconsistency in her story is off the charts. When I heard her say that I was only her second boyfriend, I was honestly confused, because she told me directly that I was her third. It's pretty clear to me why she would change that detail. She wanted to come across as less experienced to make her story sound more convincing, like I somehow took advantage of her. But that's not what happened at all. In one of her posts, she even wrote, "I'm not alleging anything illegal, just that he would hit and choke because he was a super goner. I sort of normalized it in my head, but it's definitely not okay to do that." So now she's trying to twist things, saying she normalized something that she herself helped create and encouraged. To really understand how that idea even started, let's rewind to the very beginning of our relationship. On Wednesday, May 14th, after we'd only hung out once, Rowan texted me saying she was excited to see me again. Then, completely unprompted, she added that she already knew my penis was massive. At that point, I hadn't even said anything sexual, not one word. So, as you might imagine, by the second date, we did end up being intimate. Afterwards, she texted me saying, and this is a direct quote, "Rape thing is so hot. I never did that before. You should tie me up next time." I was immediately uncomfortable with that language, so I replied, "Consensual sex is good." She came back with, "You know what I meant by that. I don't know what to call it." That right there shows everything. From our very first encounter, she was the one introducing extreme or shocking terms, while I made sure to clarify that everything we did was consensual. She's the one who described what happened that way, not me. And for the record, I never indulged in that tied-up fantasy she mentioned. It just wasn't something I was comfortable with or interested in doing. And all that stuff about being taken to the woods? Total fiction. That never happened either. I drew the line every single time, and anyone reading our messages can see it plain as day. If anyone's still wondering what the real story is, let me lay it out clearly with more of our actual messages. On Friday, May 16th, Rowan texted me asking when I was free, saying she needed my, quote, "big odd D-ah." I told her not to say that, and she shot right back with, "It is, and I need it." Just 2 days later, on May 18th, she texted again, saying she wasn't used to being with someone my size, that it hurt her, but then added that she wanted to do it again and wasn't going to be a pussy about it. Those are her words, not mine. Some of the things she's claimed publicly about me now are honestly bizarre, even desperate. For example, she complained that I never went down on her, trying to make it sound like I was selfish or inconsiderate in bed. But there's a literal text where I told her, "Look, I'm a selfish lover." And what did she say? She replied, "It's okay. I like sucking dick more than getting eaten out. I'm a real freak." So clearly, she was fine with it. That's straight from her. And it doesn't stop there. Even though she's trying to paint me as some sort of over-the-top sexual deviant, the reality is that she was just as involved, if not more. She constantly called herself a freak and loved that we were on the same wavelength. In her own words, she said, "You match my freak." She didn't say I was too freaky or that I pushed her past her comfort zone. She literally said I matched her energy. In another message, she texted me, "I'm getting on my knees as soon as I see you, by the way. Freak mode." That's how she talked to me. Excited, open, and completely into it. Then, when I messaged her saying I was thinking about her, she instantly replied, "You're gonna tear it up or what?" There's no confusion in these exchanges. Everything was mutual, clear, and enthusiastically initiated by her. All these receipts prove exactly what I've been saying. Our encounters were consensual, open, and driven by both of us. Her public story now doesn't line up with her own words from that time. Not even close. Now, let me just throw this out there. Do people who love slow, romantic, candlelit sex usually describe intimacy as their petty getting torn up? I'd say probably not. That kind of language doesn't come from someone looking for gentle, soft moments. It comes from someone who's into things being wild and intense. In another message, Rowan even said she was leaving Mass early on Sunday just to go get some DDAC. That's not something I'm proud to repeat. And honestly, I wish I didn't have to share any of this. I don't want to be here exposing private stuff like this, but she's gone out of her way to not only shame me, but twist the truth, trying to paint me as some kind of goner freak, or worse, like I did something predatory. That's a heavy thing to accuse someone of, especially when her own messages tell a completely different story. Let's keep it real. Rowan made a public post calling me a Patrick Bateman goner, just because I flexed in the mirror after we hooked up. Sounds dramatic, right? But here's what makes that accusation even crazier. I've got a text from her saying, "I keep thinking about how hot it was watching myself take your big ding in the mirror. Goner as fall." Her words. So she's calling me that now, but she was the one hyping it up back then. And honestly, reading through everything she's posted about me online, it's like every accusation she makes is actually a reflection of her own behavior. Every single time she tries to make me look like some monster, there's a message right there showing that she was the one driving the same energy. On June 25th, she even texted me wondering if she could give me oral after getting her wisdom teeth removed. Anyone who's had that surgery knows your face is swollen and sore for days. But she was saying, "No, I gotta do it as much as possible before." That's straight up her text. And it doesn't stop there. She also asked me, "Am I the tightest, most perfect girl you ever fucked?" Those aren't the words of someone scared, hurt, or feeling violated. That's someone who was fully engaged, confident, and enjoying what we had. It just shows how far her current story has drifted from the reality she once lived and wrote about herself. On July 2nd, Rowan texted me saying, "I miss that big D so much. I'm under spells." Just 3 days later, on July 5th, I brought up the idea of using condoms, and her reaction was, "You know." Then she went on to say she wanted me to cream pie her and called herself a real freak. After I wished her happy birthday for her 21st, she replied that all she wanted for her birthday was, quote, "Your big white..." Yeah, you get the picture. These are her words, not mine. Then there's another message where she told me, "I miss feeling like I'm going to break in half, not gonna lie." In another, she said, "I like when you make me choke on it and call me a good girl." And later, on July 23rd, she texted, "Can I come over and suck on it Friday night?" I told her I couldn't, that I was busy. And she responded with, "I have the big white cock addiction." Her messages were constant and explicit. It's crystal clear who was initiating and what kind of energy she was bringing. What's even more telling is another text where she asked if I could lift her and hold her midair during sex. She literally encouraged it, saying I should try it sometime. That's a wild thing to request from someone you're now accusing of being too rough or abusive. If she was truly scared or traumatized, why would she be asking for more intense, physically demanding stuff like that months into the relationship? Then, on July 21st, she sent me a message saying, "I hate goner men." But less than a minute later, she followed it up with, "I need that big white chew." That back and forth alone shows how contradictory her attitude really was. It didn't stop there either. On August 23rd, she wrote, "Whenever I wake up without my morning Tom face fuck, I am sad." And then on September 2nd, she messaged me saying she wished she lived closer. But if she did, it would be a problem because she'd want to come suck my dick all the time. All of these texts show the same consistent pattern. She wasn't being forced into anything. She was completely aware, enthusiastic, and constantly initiating these kinds of conversations herself. The version of events she's spinning now doesn't match the person who was sending these messages. Not even a little bit. On September 17th, Rowan sent me an Instagram reel of someone praying the rosary. I didn't respond right away, and her next message was, "I miss that D so much." Then, not long after, she sent me a picture of herself in lingerie with the caption, "When it's rape time." Yeah, that's exactly what she wrote. And what did I do? I didn't play into it. I just replied with a photo of the movie Just Friends. That was it! Then, on Thursday, September 25th at around 7:30 in the morning, she messaged me saying, "I hope you come. I got something special for our rape times." And again, I corrected her right away. I said, "Change that to consensual sexual encounters." She immediately replied, "I know," and then followed up with, "Are you mad at me? I know it's consensual." So even months into the relationship, over 4 months at this point, she was clearly acknowledging that everything we did was fully consensual and something she enjoyed. Now that we've gone through a lot of our messages, it's time to talk about what she's publicly claimed about October, the month she says a specific incident happened where she supposedly asked me to stop during sex, and I didn't. Let me be completely clear, that never happened. Not once. But since she brought it up, let's actually look through what our texts from that exact month show. On October 2nd, she texted me, "You are perfect." That doesn't sound like someone traumatized or upset. Then on October 3rd and 4th, we hung out in person. Afterwards, she texted me making sure I got home safe and told me that I was her man. Her messages from that entire week are normal, affectionate, and consistent with everything she'd been saying before. There's no sign of any tension, no mention of discomfort, and definitely no reference to some kind of assault or moment where I ignored her boundaries. If something as serious as what she's now describing had actually happened, it would have shown up in her tone or her messages, but it didn't. Instead, what you see is her still being loving, playful, and openly wanting me around. The story she's telling publicly now doesn't match the reality of what she was saying and doing at the time. Not even close. She told me that in her heart, I was her formal date, meaning I wasn't just another guy, I was something special to her. Right after that, she mentioned how she hated when people commented on her body, even in a positive way. I told her gently that she shouldn't stress about that stuff. I said, "Eat some slop, go for a walk. Don't worry, you're beautiful." I was trying to be kind and supportive, not critical. Then, on October 8th, she went right back to being flirtatious and sexual. She complimented my arm and sent me a meme that said, "Me if I do not have violent sex very soon." The same day, she texted me, "I miss my handsome husband." When I told her I'd just landed in Texas, she instantly replied, "I miss sucking on it," and followed up with, "You gotta start putting rape time in your reminders." That's how she talked, joking and pushing those same extreme phrases she's now using to accuse me. The next day, October 9th, she said she wanted to hang out. I told her I'd arrive safely, and she replied, "Let me know when you get back safe. I always have such a fun time with you." No anger, no discomfort, just affection. By October 14th, she was texting me that she wished she could wake up next to me in the morning. She even sounded sad that I wasn't planning to move closer to her city. She wanted us to be near each other. In the same conversation, she said her life had actually gotten better since meeting me. She told me she used to party and go out all the time, but that being with me had changed that. She was calmer and happier. Then, on October 15th, she sent another message saying, "I started my period. I wish I could come suck on it." That evening, she told me, "I would kill myself if I had to talk to any other man but you." I replied, "That's true, I'm a nice guy," and she laughed and said, "Yeah, I'm the bad guy." Finally, on October 17th, the same message I mentioned earlier, she texted me, "Do you ever go back and watch our videos?" That's yet another moment showing how she was fully aware, totally comfortable, and even nostalgic about the same videos she now claims were non-consensual. The contrast between what she said then and what she's saying now is undeniable. When she asked, "Do you ever go back and watch our videos?" I told her, "Yeah, I do sometimes actually." And her reply? She said she was thinking about that exact moment right then and added, "Need that big white Sikshi in the mirror. You deadass look like the Hulk compared to me." That's what she wrote, in her own words. At no point did she ever act like those videos were non-consensual or unwanted. I really want to emphasize that. She never once expressed that she didn't know about or agree to being filmed. Then, on October 19th, she texted me saying she needs my milk right now. A little later, she followed up with, I miss my perfect jacked boyfriend. That same night, she sent me nude photos, completely unsolicited. Around 10 p.m., she even sent a meme of a guy holding a clock with the caption, I need that dia. This kind of messaging was constant and clear. She was fully participating, always initiating, and completely comfortable being sexual with me. On October 21st, I sent her a picture flexing my arm, and she immediately responded with, you look good, Tom. I can't wait to suck your DI. Then she added, I love you. You're a great boyfriend. After that, she mentioned something about how I'd never officially asked her to be my girlfriend, and I reminded her that we actually had that talk on October 23rd, and there's proof we hung out that day too. Later that same night, she texted me, text me when you get home safe. I told her I made it, and she sent back another message saying, I love when my bed smells like your musk. Those aren't the words of someone feeling afraid, violated, or manipulated. Those are affectionate, intimate, and consistent with how she'd been talking all along. On October 24th, she said, good night, you're the best boyfriend ever. And the very next day, October 25th, she sent me a photo of herself dressed in a deer outfit captioned, meow, I miss Tom's big white D. That's not the tone of someone in distress. That's flirtatious, enthusiastic, and completely voluntary. Everything she said and sent during that time paints a totally different picture from the one she's putting out publicly now. Her own words prove that what we had was mutual and consensual from start to finish. On October 26th, Rowan texted me saying, I'm gonna send you ass pics tomorrow. That same day, and yeah, we've gone over this one before, she sent another message saying, next time during our epic rape time, you can tie me up. And again, just like every other time, I corrected her immediately. I said, you mean consensual sex? She replied, you know what I mean, Tom. Rough sex. These are her words, clear as day. And honestly, it's just bizarre that someone who's now claiming I was sexually abusive week after week would have been sending messages like that. Playful, explicit, and completely engaged in what she now calls trauma. Later that same night, October 26th, I went over to Rowan's house and I stayed the night. The next day, there's a text showing that I'd left and mentioned taking my friend to the hospital. Her reply on October 27th was sweet and caring. She said she hoped I was doing okay and added, I love you so much. Nothing about those exchanges sounds like fear or resentment. It's affection, plain and simple. Then on October 30th, she texted me out of nowhere saying, we'll be married in 2 years. That's not something a person says about someone they claim was mistreating them. That's a message filled with love, fantasy, and emotional connection. On October 31st, right after midnight, she texted me saying, I had a nightmare you broke up with me. Oh my God. Later that morning, she sent another message joking that I should cut a hole in my Batman suit for my D. Then, later that same afternoon, she wrote, oh Tom, I yearn for the big white car. Her own words. Her tone was still playful, intimate, and clearly mutual. A little after midnight on November 1st, around 1:20 a.m., she texted, up, no, good night, I love you. Yeah, it's fucking over. I told her I was falling asleep, and that's when she suddenly messaged, you were madly in love with her and not me. I'm gonna hurt myself. I immediately told her, good night, I'll see you tomorrow, and followed that up by saying, do not say anything like that ever again. That exchange alone shows I was trying to calm the situation, to protect her, and keep things from spiraling. It gives important context to how emotional and unstable things were getting toward the end, and how I was the one trying to handle it responsibly, not escalate it. On October 26th, Rowan texted me saying, I'm gonna send you ass pics tomorrow. That same day, and yeah, we've gone over this one before, she sent another message saying, next time during our epic rape time, you can tie me up. And again, just like every other time, I corrected her immediately. I said, you mean consensual sex? She replied, you know what I mean, Tom, rough sex. These are her words, clear as day. And honestly, it's just bizarre that someone who's now claiming I was sexually abusive week after week would have been sending messages like that. Playful, explicit, and completely engaged in what she now calls trauma. Later that same night, October 26th, I went over to Rowan's house and I stayed the night. The next day, there's a text showing that I'd left and mentioned taking my friend to the hospital. Her reply on October 27th was sweet and caring. She said she hoped I was doing okay and added, "I love you so much." Nothing about those exchanges sounds like fear or resentment. It's affection, plain and simple. Then on October 30th, she texted me out of nowhere saying, "We'll be married in 2 years." That's not something a person says about someone they claim was mistreating them. That's a message filled with love, fantasy, and emotional connection. On October 31st, right after midnight, she texted me saying, "I had a nightmare you broke up with me. Oh my God." Later that morning, she sent another message joking that I should cut a hole in my Batman suit for my dog. Then, later that same afternoon, she wrote, "Oh Tom, I yearn for the big white car." Her own words. Her tone was still playful, intimate, and clearly mutual. A little after midnight on November 1st, around 1:20 a.m., she texted, "Up? No, good night, I love you. Yeah, it's fucking over." I told her I was falling asleep, and that's when she suddenly messaged, "You were madly in love with her and not me. I'm gonna hurt myself." I immediately told her, "Good night, I'll see you tomorrow," and followed that up by saying, "Do not say anything like that ever again." That exchange alone shows I was trying to calm the situation, to protect her and keep things from spiraling. It gives important context to how emotional and unstable things were getting toward the end, and how I was the one trying to handle it responsibly, not escalate it. Throughout our entire relationship, Rowan was extremely insecure about the fact that, before her, I had lived with another girl. It really got under her skin. She wanted me to show a deeper level of commitment, like moving closer to her or even living together, way before I was ready. She brought it up more than once, suggesting that we move in together, but I kept telling her it's too soon. I explained that we'd only been dating a few months, and moving in together that fast just didn't make sense. That was a big point of tension between us. She'd often compare herself to my ex or even to other people I'd dated before, and I'd constantly tell her, "Don't say stuff like that. I'm with you now. Stop worrying about the past." I wanted her to focus on what we had in the moment, not on what came before. Later that night, she texted me, "Mass is needed. I am such a sweet girl and have love in my heart for you. I know this." The conversation carried over into the morning when she messaged, "Hi, my sweet love." It was affectionate, kind, and calm, the complete opposite of the tension she's describing now. The next day, around noon, she texted again saying, "Sorry for being kind of bitchy. Let me know when you're on your way." When I told her I'd arrived, we took a cute photo together in our Halloween outfits. Everything between us was normal and happy. On November 2nd, I texted her to say I made it home, and she replied, "Hope you have a good day." So by this point, we've gone through the entire month of October. And what do the messages show? No abuse, no mistreatment, not even an argument that could hint at something dark. In fact, the messages are full of affection, compliments, and constant reminders that she loved me, missed me, and thought I was perfect. Day after day, it was nothing but positivity from her end, and a steady stream of sexual messages that she was sending without me even asking for them. It's not just about the tone, it's about the consistency. There's not one single message showing fear, discomfort, or regret about the sex we were having. Instead, it's all explicit, playful, and enthusiastic. And just to really drive this home, I'll share what came next, because it speaks for itself. On Wednesday, November 5th, out of nowhere, she texted me saying, "I'm trying to make you," and the message cut off there, but the intent was clear. Even after all the things she's now claiming, the reality in our text shows a completely different picture, one of constant desire, affection, and mutual consent. After that last message, I didn't respond, and then on December 12th, Rowan sent me nudes again. Kind of strange behavior, right? Especially from someone who's now claiming I was using intimate content to blackmail her. Why would anyone send more of that kind of content to a person they supposedly fear? It just doesn't add up. Then, on December 24th, Christmas Eve, she texted me calling me a sweetie pie. She said she was grateful for me, that she wanted to make me, in her words, nut again, and that she hoped we'd be married for a long time. Again, that's love and affection, not fear or trauma. Fast forward to January 2nd. She sent me another naked photo of herself, unprompted. I didn't ask for it. And then, on the morning of January 8th, she texted me saying, "Before I come to visit you, I need to know that your DE is working." Less than 36 hours later, I ended the relationship. So if you look at everything leading up to that, the timeline, the tone, the messages, it's obvious. The texts don't lie. Rowan was clearly the more sexual and forward one between us. I've provided consistent proof of this nearly every week of our relationship, and she hasn't shown anything close to contradicting it, because there isn't any evidence. But beyond her false claims about filming and supposed abuse, Rowan also accused me of something else, that I encouraged her eating disorder. That's a really serious accusation, and I want to address it directly because it's completely false. Not only did I not encourage that behavior, I actively tried to help her fight it. There are multiple messages showing this. In one, I told her directly that starving herself was very bad for her and that she needed to eat more. I even gave her advice on gaining healthy weight. She once messaged me saying she used to be thick, but had self-nuked, meaning she lost weight through unhealthy habits. I replied, "You look the same more or less. I guess you lost some weight, but I think both are attractive." That's not body shaming or pressure, that's reassurance. In another exchange, she told me she felt skinny fat, and I replied, "I don't agree. Working out is good. That's encouragement to live healthier, not to stay underweight." Then she sent me a picture that said, "Nothing tastes as good as skinny feels." For those who don't know, that's a phrase tied to pro-anorexia culture. And I immediately responded, "That's a sickening image." I didn't ignore it. I didn't brush it off. I called it what it was, dangerous and unhealthy. And in yet another conversation, she asked me if I'd still like her if she gained weight. I told her yes, absolutely. I even went further, telling her she should eat more food and drink protein shakes to help her gain healthy weight again. My messages to her were consistent the whole time. I cared about her health and wanted her to stop hurting herself. So to claim I encouraged her eating disorder is not just false. It's completely opposite of what actually happened. Every single message we exchanged proves I was trying to support her, not exploit her. In another message, I told Rowan that gaining a little weight would actually be healthy for her, adding, "I just want you to be healthy." I also told her that I found her attractive exactly as she was, but that it might help her body if she put on 5 to 10 pounds. So by that point, there were 7 different times where I directly discouraged her from engaging in her eating disorder. 7 receipts showing I was trying to help her, not egg it on like she's been saying. Now, another one of her claims is that I'm supposedly into age play. She's not saying I did that with her, but she's claiming I did it with another girl named Ellie, someone I briefly talked to 2 years ago. The thing is, there's zero proof of this anywhere, nothing even close. I actually texted Ellie directly about it, and she confirmed that I've never done anything related to age play with her. That alone destroys that rumor. But it doesn't stop there. My ex-girlfriend Kai, who I dated for 3 years, also spoke up publicly on Twitter. She said I never abused her, and that there was never any form of age play in our relationship. So when you line it all up, that's 5 different women: Rowan, Katie, Ellie, Kai, and another girl named Maddie, who randomly joined in online, all saying that I've never done that or had any sort of fetish like that with them. Maddie even posted photos of herself at my place trying to stir things up, but her posts still confirmed the same thing. There was nothing weird going on. The closest thing I've ever done that might even vaguely relate to what people are calling age play is that during sex, some women have called me daddy. That's it. Honestly, it's a little embarrassing to even admit that, but it's true. And let's be real, it's not exactly rare. Plenty of adults use that term in the moment, and it doesn't mean there's anything deeper or twisted about it. I've never initiated it, but when it happened, I didn't make it weird or uncomfortable. It's just something that came up. And that's what makes Rowan's version of events even more hypocritical, because she also called me daddy, both in bed and over text, more times than I can even count. So for her to now act like it's something strange or perverse when she was doing it herself just doesn't make sense. Then she added another strange detail that supposedly meant to make me look creepy. She said, "One more thing to add, I thought it was odd. I never really expressed any interest in Hello Kitty or that type of girly stuff, but I had one Hello Kitty figure in my car as a gift. Tom bought me Hello Kitty pajamas and a bunch of Hello Kitty stuff." So now she's implying that I was pushing some kind of Hello Kitty obsession onto her, as if buying a couple of themed gifts suddenly means I've got some bizarre fetish. The reality is simple. She mentioned once that she thought Hello Kitty was cute, and I surprised her with some themed stuff, because that's what boyfriends do. It wasn't weird or sexual, it was just a normal, thoughtful gesture. The way she's twisting ordinary things into evidence of something dark says a lot more about her motives than it does about me. Let's get one thing straight. I'm a 23-year-old man, and I don't care about Hello Kitty at all. The only reason I ever bought Rowan anything Hello Kitty related, which for the record happened once, was because she constantly showed interest in it. She mentioned it all the time, and I was just trying to be thoughtful. I've got the proof too. She literally sent me a photo of a Hello Kitty figurine sitting next to her printer, then another photo of a Hello Kitty drawing she'd hand-colored herself and taped to her wall. She wasn't just kind of into it. She was actively making Hello Kitty artwork for fun. And when she was helping decorate my place one time, she texted me saying, "No Hello Kitty." And I replied, "Correct." That alone shows how the Hello Kitty stuff was her thing, not mine. What's even more interesting is that, in the same conversation, she revealed she had a Lolita movie poster hanging in her room. And if you don't know, Lolita is about a middle-aged man who becomes obsessed with a 14-year-old girl. He even gives her the nickname Lo. It's a disturbing story about manipulation and obsession. Definitely not something lighthearted. She told me outright that I should watch it. My reply? I feel like that's a movie adult men aren't supposed to see. Because, honestly, it's not something I'd ever want to associate with. Then there's another message where she asked me, if I start dressing like a weird Hello Kitty e-girl, would you still fuck with me? And I told her, no, I don't want you to do that. I find it kind of repulsive. That's a direct rejection of that whole aesthetic she's now accusing me of being obsessed with. She even got upset once because her dorm made her take down all the Hello Kitty decorations from her room. She texted me about it like she was genuinely disappointed. And the wildest part of all this, she once sent me a video that said, "Get you a man that takes you to the Hello Kitty hotel." And underneath it, she added, "Imagine the rape." My immediate response was, I will not imagine. That's how clear I was in shutting down anything that crossed a line. So when you really look at all this, it's obvious how twisted her version of the story has become. The Hello Kitty stuff wasn't me projecting some fetish. It was her thing. She was the one surrounding herself with it, drawing it, decorating with it, and even joking about it in inappropriate ways. And with all those bizarre projections and flat-out lies out of the way, we can move into another strange detail that Rowan decided to distort for reasons I honestly can't understand. A lot of people online pointed out something odd. She had posted a screenshot showing that we matched on Tinder before we even met in person. That post raised questions for good reason. The way she presented it made it seem like something shady or suspicious happened when, really, it was just normal. There was no weird setup, no hidden agenda. Just two adults who matched on a dating app like everyone else. So between the Hello Kitty claims, the movie references, and now this Tinder proof, it's clear she's been stretching reality at every turn, twisting harmless details into something dark and scandalous that simply never existed. She tried to claim that I was just one of those guys who matched with girls to gossip with, but that's not true at all. And what makes things even more bizarre is that she's repeatedly said in her statements that she's not a very online person. She's painted herself as someone who barely uses social media. But that's a straight up lie. I've got the receipts to prove it. Rowan actually sent me a message on my YouTube connected Instagram account way back on February 21st, 2024. That's 15 months before we even matched on Tinder. The message said, "You have to do a video on this crazy guy on Twitter who only has like 3,000 followers, but this man is a menace." So yeah, she knew exactly who I was, long before we ever started talking romantically. When we eventually hung out for the first time, I confronted her about it. I told her that I found it weird that she'd lied to my face and said she didn't know who I was. I said, "Hey, I looked through our old Instagram messages. You DM'd me over a year ago." She got nervous and said, "Oops, yeah, I'm sorry. I didn't want to tell you, but I watched one of your vids a while ago and thought you were cute, but I thought it would be awkward." I replied, "That's okay. I was just surprised." She answered, "I know, I probably look crazy." I laughed a bit and said, "I mean, a little bit. It's okay. I just wish you told me, that's all." Then she admitted it all. She said, "I didn't want to because I thought it would be weird. I'm sorry. Kinda lied about some stuff." I was like a niche internet micro celebrity on Twitter for a little bit too. I'm chronically online and didn't want to admit it, LOL. I've gotten better about it. So the same person who's now out there saying she wasn't very online literally called herself chronically online. And honestly, that little lie might seem small, but it's just another example of how inconsistent her story has been from the very beginning. It's not even something major, yet she still chose to lie about it. Stuff like that really makes me question what her intentions were throughout the whole relationship. And speaking of things she's misrepresented, let's talk about how she's even lied about when our relationship ended. In her interview, she said that we broke up in December, and that after the breakup, she supposedly had this big realization about how bad things were, which is when she reached out to Katie, who I'll address later. But that timeline is totally wrong. The truth is, we broke up on January 10th, 2026. That's the actual date. I've got the messages to prove it. And just 4 days later, on January 14th, she started posting about me publicly. So the whole story about her taking time to reflect after our breakup is complete fiction. She didn't process anything. She jumped straight into posting about me online less than a week later. Looking back at all this, the pattern is impossible to ignore. Even on the small stuff, she keeps twisting the truth to make her version sound more dramatic or sympathetic. But when you compare her public claims to the actual timeline and our private messages, none of it lines up. Not even close. Just a few days after everything ended, Rowan went online claiming that the breakup was kind of mutual. That statement alone is painfully ironic, because it couldn't be further from the truth. The moment I told her that I wanted to end things, she completely spiraled. Instead of accepting it, she started threatening to post about me online and even hinted that she'd expose private stuff unless I slept with her again. That's not mutual, that's manipulation. When I tried to keep things calm, I said something along the lines of, "I don't know what you want me to say to you. I just want to move on from our relationship and have you go live your life in your own corner. You can meet other guys and it'll be fine. I'll meet other people and we can both just move on." But she didn't take that well. Her responses were all over the place, asking why, repeatedly, like she couldn't process what I was saying. I kept telling her, "Okay, Rowan, I just want to move on and have my life, and you'll move on and have yours. We don't have to hurt each other anymore. We don't have to cause each other any more pain." But instead of letting go, she got defensive and agitated. I said, "After the way these conversations have gone today, I really don't think so. Because you're threatening to blackmail me." And her immediate response? "I am." She literally admitted it in that moment. I made it clear, again and again, that I didn't want to have sex with her anymore, that I didn't want to keep the relationship going, and that I just wanted out. I wanted a clean break. No drama, no fighting, no back and forth. But she just couldn't accept that. After that final conversation, I cut off contact. And what did she do next? She blew up my phone, calling me over 30 times and sending around 80 text messages, all without a single response from me. That's not the behavior of someone who's terrified or trying to escape an abuser. That's someone refusing to accept that things are over. And now, the same person who was begging me to sleep with her again right after the breakup is publicly claiming to be a victim of sexual abuse. It's a heartbreaking and frustrating situation because it shows how far she's willing to go to rewrite what actually happened. The truth is simple. I said no. I didn't want to get back together, didn't want to be intimate, didn't want to continue any kind of relationship. I just wanted peace. But instead of respecting that, she turned the story upside down and used the internet as her weapon. Everything about this shows the same pattern. When I set boundaries or said no, she crossed the line anyway. And when I finally walked away, she tried to destroy me for it. So when people ask, "Did you two talk at all after the breakup?" Yeah, technically, she kept reaching out, but it wasn't a normal conversation. Once I ended things, Rowan completely lost control. I stopped replying because every message from her became more chaotic, switching from begging me to forgive her to trying to convince me to have sex again to sending long, unhinged texts packed with lies she made up after I dumped her. It was exhausting. Now that Rowan's situation is handled, it's time to talk about the next person who came forward, Katie, also known online as Clorox. Katie was someone I had a short-term relationship with about 2 years ago. The timing of everything is what makes this all so suspicious. She began posting accusations about me on the exact same day Rowan did. Back when Katie and I were seeing each other, she actually flew from California to Maine twice just to visit me. But now in her interview, she's describing those visits as the worst experience of her life. Here's a part of what she said in that interview. Yes, Tom is extremely harsh during sex. I've been down the kink roads in my life, and how he acts is actually just evil and almost sadistic. Not even kinked up, just actually a Patrick Bateman type gooner. She even went as far as to say, I just truly thought he was cringe, who definitely was gonna beat me later if I stayed around. We only had a 2-month fling, but even my insane ass was scared of how he acted, and he was also just stupid. I hated conversation with him. He was just extremely weird to me and also evil as fuck during sex. Naturally, people online started questioning her story. They asked why, if things were that bad, she never went to the police. Her response was, I thought about the police and looked into it, but because it happened across state lines, in Maine, it would have had to be filed there, and I lived on the opposite side of the country, so it didn't seem feasible. That explanation alone is wild. But even setting that aside, her entire version of events falls apart when you look at the actual messages between us. In our DMs, you can see exactly what really happened. Katie first came to visit me on January 20th and left on January 23rd. She messaged me before her trip saying she was excited to see me. After she went home, her very first text wasn't fear or anger, and it was affection. She said, I had so much fun, Tom. You can kidnap me whenever. I feel so alone in my bed. That's a direct quote. You can kidnap me whenever. Those aren't the words of someone terrified or abused. Then she followed it up by saying she had to come back to see me again. Within days of returning home, she started sending me nude photos, twice, completely unprompted. And again, just like with Rowan, that's an odd thing to do if you believe someone secretly recorded you during sex. Why would anyone voluntarily send explicit pictures to a person they're supposedly afraid of? Her messages kept coming. She said things like, I need it, and I'm so starved, so deprived, and told me she missed me so much. I replied casually, suggesting, let's hang out in March, and she said, I'm down, but waiting until March will be so hard. On February 1st, she texted again saying she missed me. On February 2nd, she slid up on one of my Instagram stories and told me she was counting down the days until she could see me again. Then she said, I need to see you ASAP. I miss everything about you. By February 4th, she sent another message saying she wished she woke up cuddling me. And on February 8th, she texted saying she wanted to have sex with me again. All of that happened after our first time together. After the trip, she now calls the worst experience of her life. Then on February 18th, she messaged me again saying, I'm going to swallow you, and followed it up with another explicit photo. Every message, every piece of proof shows the same pattern. She wasn't afraid, she wasn't traumatized, and she definitely wasn't trying to get away from me. In fact, she was eager to keep things going. So when you put her public claims next to the private evidence, it's obvious that the story she's telling now doesn't line up with the person she actually was back then. It's another example of someone rewriting history for attention, clout, or sympathy. But the truth is sitting right there in the screenshots. Katie kept sending me naked photos, completely willingly. And again, just think about that for a second. She's publicly claiming that I filmed her during sex without her consent, yet she kept sending me new nude photos and even a video after the fact. If she truly believed I was some kind of threat, why would she keep doing that? It just doesn't make sense. In one of those videos, she even said, I need you right meow. I need you ASAP. Then on February 22nd and February 24th, she sent more messages saying, I miss you, and are you home yet? On February 28th, she slid up on one of my Instagram stories and wrote, "I'm gonna suck you so good." Not long after, she said, "I need to see you now more than ever. Lots of hugs and hot sex." By March 2nd, she was still just as forward. She texted, "I like you lots," and I replied that I felt the same. She said she couldn't wait to see me again and kept mentioning how excited she was for our upcoming weekend together. In the next message, I said, "Your pee's gonna be so sore." And she immediately replied, "Good thing we had to wait a while, because then I can take a beating." She even added, "I'm ready for you to throw me around." We also talked about how long she'd stay during her second trip. When I asked how many days she wanted, she told me, "As long as you want." She said we'd have so much sex and party so hard, and she kept emphasizing how excited she was to come back. There was never a hint of discomfort, not a single message suggesting fear or regret. Then, on March 7th, she sent another round of unsolicited sexual photos, including one where she was wearing leather BDSM gear. No one asked for it, she sent it on her own. The next day, March 8th, she said, "All I can think about is you. I can't wait for your D friend to be down my throat." By March 10th at 7 a.m., which would have been 4 a.m. her time in California, she texted again, saying she was so excited to see me that she couldn't sleep. That's someone eager and full of anticipation, not someone who feels unsafe or abused. Now that we've gone through all the Instagram messages, let's move to the text messages, which tell the same story. On March 10th, right before her second trip, she texted me saying she was starving for me. Then, on March 15th, after her visit, she told me she'd accidentally left her toothbrush at my place, but insisted that I have to let her come back. Keep in mind, this was supposedly the trip that she now calls the worst experience of her entire life. That's how she described it in her interview, but the messages tell a completely different story. In that interview, she went as far as to claim that she was physically abused during her second visit. She described it like she was in real danger, saying the sex was violent and unrelenting. But if you look at what she was texting me before, during, and after that visit, it paints the opposite picture. She was the one constantly initiating, hyping it up, and making explicit comments about how much she wanted things to be rough. The same person who was telling me I can take a beating and throw me around is now pretending she was helpless and terrified. If what she said in her interview were true, you'd expect to see some sign of fear or resistance in the messages, but there's absolutely none. The tone of every single text and DM was excitement, desire, and anticipation. She wasn't scared of me. She wanted to see me again and again. And even after that second trip, the one she publicly calls traumatic, she was still messaging me, still flirting, still acting like nothing was wrong. The evidence shows a mutual, consensual relationship, not the horror story she's now trying to sell online. Katie claimed that during our time together, she would ask me to stop doing things and I wouldn't, but that's simply not true. You might remember she also said she ended things because I was insufferable to be around, and that after her second trip, she finally realized she was a victim. According to her version, that's when she got scared that I'd supposedly hurt her. But here's what actually happened. On March 20th, right after her second visit, Katie texted me saying, "Tom, I really like spending time with you, but I'm kind of worried about if you actually like me or are just using me LOL. I'm just being dumb and so I'm tweaking and need reassurance. Are you just having fun with me or do we have something?" Does that sound like someone who's scared of me? Someone claiming to be traumatized? No, that sounds like someone who's emotionally attached and wants reassurance. I responded honestly, "Well, I like you and I think you're cool. Perhaps we even have something. However, I'd make a bad boyfriend, so I don't really want to date anyone officially right now." I was upfront and clear with my intentions from the start. I didn't want anything serious. There were no mixed signals, no mind games, no manipulation. And apparently, this was the same time she realized the true extent of my abuse. That's interesting, because right after that, Katie was still trying to set up a third meeting with me. She said she wished she was in Ohio, where I happened to be at the time, and she wanted to come visit again. But I didn't reciprocate. I was polite, but I didn't engage further. What happened next makes her story fall apart even more. After that, she slid up on my Instagram stories 12 different times over the next 10 months, and I didn't slide up on hers once. Not a single time. So ask yourself, do those messages sound like they're coming from a woman who thinks I'm some evil and sadistic person she feared so much that she considered going to the police? Or do they sound like someone who was into me, missed me, and wanted to reconnect? To me, it's obvious. She enjoyed our time together and wanted more of it. Let's not forget, she flew across the entire country twice just to see me. That's thousands of miles from California to Maine. After her second visit, she even wanted me to be her boyfriend. I didn't want that kind of commitment, and when I said no, she kept reaching out anyway, hoping to hang out again. And to wrap this all up, I want to highlight something that ties both these stories, Rowan's and Katie's, together. After Rowan noticed that I followed Katie on Instagram, she messaged me on December 8th saying, "Did you know Clorox Katie tried to fuck Jet Neptune?" She then added, "Those girls make themselves easy targets with the hair and piercings because they have sexual trauma." And if that wasn't enough, she followed it up with, "They complain about sexual assault a lot because they'll fuss anything that breathes." Those are Rowan's own words about Katie, the same woman she's now standing beside, accusing me of the same things. And what makes that even wilder? Barely a month later, just 1 month and 2 days later to be exact, I broke up with Rowan. And right after the breakup, in one of her many angry messages, she told me she'd be messaging every girl I'd ever been with to find whatever dirt she could so she could run to the internet and expose me. So when you put all of this together, the contradictions, the private messages, the obvious coordination, it paints a very different picture than what's being spun online. None of this looks like two women bravely coming forward about abuse. It looks like two exes teaming up out of bitterness and jealousy, trying to rewrite the past to make themselves look like victims. And look, I know people online love to say, "Tom's a hypocrite, he gooned. And you know what? You're right, I did goon. I never stopped gooning. Maybe in the end, the hats are more relevant than ever. Anyway, that's everything I needed to say. I've shown the messages, the timelines, and the receipts. The truth speaks for itself. If you made it this far, thank you for hearing me out. And if you found this eye-opening, like, subscribe, share, and drop a comment with your thoughts. Let's make sure the truth actually gets heard.